Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. It's August 3, 2026, and today I'm here with Cody Pierce. Now, this is an unusual interview for me. I think it's the first ever, and Ms. Sandra Martin is in the chat. Nice to see you. Great to have you here. And yeah, I think I've literally never hosted anybody in the political arena, maybe with a few libertarian exceptions in the early days. And there are reasons for that, but that didn't stop me from having an interest in Cody Pierce because, especially as a young person working locally, and the one thing that really came to my attention yesterday is that he's being shadow banned like many of us in the truth world are, and he's awake to the agenda. So those things really caught my attention. Also, as a young entrepreneur, I have a lot of admiration for that kind of leadership in the community as well. And without further ado, I'll bring him on to introduce himself. Hello and welcome, Cody. So great to have you here.
Hey, Beth. Thanks for having me on. Really excited for this.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself to those that are not familiar with you yet?
Yeah, sure. So I run a computer business in a small town here in Alexandria, Ontario. It's a town of maybe 3,000 people. And lately, I've decided to throw my name in the hat to run for mayor in my municipality of North Glengarry. So all of a sudden, I went from just going all in on my business, kind of keeping my head down, not really being involved in politics, to just throwing my name in the ring and navigating everything that entails. So that's what brought me here, and happy to talk about it, whatever you'd like.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, we'll get into it. And so I have a link here in the chat already, and this is to Cody's Facebook page, where if you could help him, go and like that page, knowing, many of us are not in that municipality of Glengarry specifically, but if you can help him and go and like that page, that will mean that you can live stream off of it, correct?
Yes, if I have 1,000 people who follow that page, it's brand new. I made it just for the campaign. So if I could get it to 1,000 likes before October, that will be big because I'll have the ability to broadcast live. And Facebook is the best for local reach whenever you have an unrestricted page, which thankfully, as of right now, it seems totally unrestricted. So I'm very thankful about that.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, and you have experienced some shadow banning, so we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to back up and just ask you some questions about what in your life led up to this. There's actually two questions, and I'm going to ask the second one first, if you're keeping the math going there in your head. So what inspired you? What in your life pointed towards leadership? And because you're not exactly a dime a dozen out there, especially as a young person, a lot of people are getting into just either hopelessness or complete denial about what's going on. And I wanted to ask you, what was happening for you in 2020, and how did you come to a greater understanding of what was going on than the media was telling us?
Yeah, well, I know that this is like often a bad word. It has a negative connotation, but the word radicalized, I became very radicalized during COVID, seeing everything that happened. So what happened to me during COVID is I had just bought a house here in Alexandria. I was working 2 jobs. I just liquidated all my savings because I bought this house, and my girlfriend was pregnant. So I have no savings. I have bills, and I have a baby on the way. And then all of a sudden they have these lockdowns where they say that both my jobs, I was working as a personal trainer in a gym, and I was working in a tech store, and both jobs were deemed like non-essential. So right at the worst possible time, I get laid off of both jobs, and just feeling all the pressure about that. And the way that the government came in so heavy-handed in completely, at least for the time, ruining my life, putting me in a really hard place, and then painting it as being virtuous, right? And being good for all, right? I'm selfish if I in any way protest to losing my 2 jobs that I need to feed my family, pay my bills. And it just made me realize, wow, if the government has unchecked power, they'll come up with any reason to make it seem virtuous when they take away all of our freedoms and ruin our life. And just seeing how unsympathetic they are, where the approach is just get with the program or else, pretty much. It just really scared me to see that, wow, it's not just in history that you can have these huge government overreaches. It could happen at any moment. And the fact that it happened to me and so many people woke me up, and I'll never be able to unsee that. But to take something that's really negative, what I just said here, and turn it into something positive, seeing the resulting community engagement and the grassroots effort that was the Freedom Convoy was the biggest source of hope and inspiration that I ever had. And I don't think that I'm ever going to forget that, or anyone who bared witness will ever forget it. And how I see politics now is basically a continuation of that spirit. I think that was the moment where it got as worse as it could. And if we keep putting in the good effort, we're going to keep tilting things back towards the side of the good and freedom for all. So
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. I love what you're saying about taking the negative and making it positive. That is also a superpower of mine. And I can do it quite innocently, where I don't spend 5 minutes in the victim side of it. I'm just right away internally flipping the situation. Now, I couldn't claim that with the events of 2020. I did have the, laying on the floor and crying and asking God, why? And
yeah,
you know,
it
I
was a lot. It was a lot of pressure. And at the time, you were made out to be crazy for saying anything against it, when even though deep down in your heart, you knew something was wrong. You knew it wasn't right. But until it came to that, crescendo of, wow, okay, with the Freedom Convoy and everything surrounding that, you realized you're not alone in that. In those first few months, it really was crushing despair.
Yeah, it really was. The Freedom Convoy, what was the date of that compared to the start of the whole scam, demic?
Roughly, I think it was about maybe like a year later. It was a
Was it
tipping
just a
point.
year? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
COVID kind of started, but like they weren't going super hard with the lockdowns and whatnot. But like when all of the, I guess, overreach started, it was maybe a year after that,
Yeah, because
if
it
I
was
remember correct.
post when we'll call them jabs, by the way, just for the sake of not getting censored here.
Uh,
When the jabs it came out, it had to have been at least a year, because it was in response to the forced jabs that the convoy came to life.
right. And I'm
And
just so proud of everybody, to where the thing about it is that something like that can happen because everyone, if you're just a good ordinary person, you're just trying to get on with your life, right? You're just trying to work your jobs, pay your mortgage, have your kids, raise your family, right? So it takes a lot to put these people into action. But I'm just so proud that push come to shove, whenever the government does go one step too far, and I really think it was those, they were starting to enact curfews and do the vaccine passports.
oops.
Enough people were radicalized by that, right? And I say that in a good way, to where they put their foot down and they said, this is too much. And we really did rise to the occasion. I'm still so hopeful because that happened. And I think that if and when that day comes again, we'll be ready.
Right, right. And just a reminder, we won't say the V word. It can get the video taken down off of
Oh,
YouTube in
sorry about
particular.
that. Sorry
That's
about that.
okay. I know I should have given you a good warning before, but yeah, we have to talk like babies and say jabs, or poison
Okay.
injection is one of my favorite kind of things. So, but
Okay.
yeah, I remember being similarly inspired by it, especially when I saw the quote unquote normal people, right? Like not just the rebels, not the loudmouths such as myself coming out, or the younger people. You had the every generation. My images, because it was the dead of winter when it came through Manitoba, and these mega snow piles on the side of the highway, and families just piled on top, and car after car after car, and every
Mhm.
bridge that you went that they went under, there was a huge crowd waiting. Like, actually get
Uh-huh.
teary thinking about it now.
Yeah, and what was
Yeah.
insane too was the change between like the reported reality, if you watch like the official news outlets and
Oh,
read the press, and then you show up and you see it in person. It's like an alternate reality. And that was just a clear as day proof to myself and millions of people that, wow, we cannot put full trust into these institutions. That was basically the tipping point to where there's no going back. People realize that you have to trust your own eyes and your own intuitions more so than just putting blind faith into these institutions, because there could not have been a bigger difference between what was really unfolding in those weeks and what was being reported on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No,
I was there myself. I drove up. Luckily, Alexandria is an hour away from Ottawa. I drove up myself and participated, and that was a really formative period in my life.
right. Amazing. Yeah, it was a true test of your perception of your character, being slammed, being shamed on the news publicly, having, saying, "Oh, is your neighbor having more than 2 people over? Go and turn them in," kind of thing, and the wagging of the fingers and the go home and then get jabbed and, "Oh, you can't go in a restaurant. You can't fly. You are
Yeah,
basically hostage in your own
they made
country."
Christmas illegal. I
Yeah.
went and I visited my family during Christmas anyways, but I remember it was technically illegal. It was like a non-essential travel.
Mhm, mhm.
And I just decided, in those moments, it really did make me a better man, because if that never happened, I might have never had to face these thoughts and make these decisions. But I decided throughout that, look, I'll accept any consequence. Become a monster and put me in a cage if that's what you're going to do, because I'm trying to visit my family during Christmas, right? Enact any punishment or consequence upon me. I would choose death before I allow somebody to allow me to never see my family when I so choose to in a free country. And I think I'm not the only one who came to those conclusions. But it's easier said than done. When you're living it, that's when you really instill it in your character. And that's why, in a way, again, to take something negative and turn it to light, I am thankful that it happened, because I think it made me and a lot of people who lived through it stronger and more firm in their principles because of it.
And was there anything leading up to your, awakening of perception at 2020 that you already had certain leanings or inclinations or perceptions that, for me, I was already opening the doors, going down the rabbit holes since 2015. So it was a little more methodical. I wasn't for long considering a boogeyman virus as the reason behind things. Like it didn't take us long to really catch up. Some people, not even 5 minutes. And so were there events in your life that prepared you for that?
No, it did catch me off guard. Like, I always had sneaking suspicions, right? That's why, in a way, it was validating that it just happened. Like, to speak of shadow banning, for example, like, okay, I see the writing on the wall. All of our news outlets here in Canada, like, they receive tons of government funding. There's CBC, which is literally just a government news organization. So I always took it with a grain of salt, and I always thought, okay, there's definitely a lack of objectivity here, just given the foundation of all these institutions. But I wasn't so sure about, like, I always knew, and especially around then, like Facebook, Twitter at the time, like, you knew they'd push certain content and maybe, not want to support other content. But it was very much behind the scenes. It wasn't blatant. And you would get labeled things like conspiracy theorist if you said things like, clearly they have a bias towards this side or that side. But when it actually happened, like, it was, I guess, validating of all these suspicions that I had. As someone who didn't go deep down the rabbit holes, but always had a hunch, to see myself personally just have an indefinite suspension on my account for posting what I thought was pretty innocent stuff just for a while, because I was covering the convoy and posting videos. They just blocked my account. I had a 30-day suspension. You cannot post in groups or anything at all. And there was no appeal, nothing. And then when a day would pass, and I should have 29 days left, it would just reset to 30. And then I found out after, okay, like, lots of government agencies and institutions, like, I watched the Mark Zuckerberg podcast and the Joe Rogan podcast, where he literally said, like, he got calls from government officials saying he has to censor in a particular way. And to just see them blatantly do that, as well with the blocking of bank accounts here in Canada, it kind of was a mask off moment where, okay, it went from, I've always had these hunches. I've always been a more like freedom oriented person and whatnot in principle, but to see it all come mask off, basically set in stone what was otherwise maybe a shaky belief, you know, because I've always liked to consider myself more moderate, right? But that's why I use the term radicalized. It was a mask off moment for the institutions.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that. That it made us moderates more radical, right? Like that. It's part of the agenda actually, because they know I speak archetypes. I don't know if you got to know me and my work at all, but on the archetypes of the hero's journey, there are two in particular that came so forward. So the first one is the child archetype, when they tell everyone, go home, do this, put your feet on the stickers. Oh, you're afraid? We'll help you. Just take this safe and effective injection, put that face covering on. You don't really need to breathe. Kind of, things that children would believe and just take in. And then they also knew that there were going to be those that were radicalized by this situation, who would get up in arms, who would get mad, who would push back and create resistance. So they were also ready for those people. And they had a whole other level of psyop for them that keeps them looping between the child and the rebel and not really moving forward on their hero's journey at all. So yeah, it was quite an anthropological study as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And your aunt is here in the chat, as you know, as well as many others had your account suspended many times. It was part of your awakening. I know, actually, I think I remember, Sandra, you got fact checked like more than anyone. I was a little strategic in my postings, I think, or a little bit more sly. I also have a very strong forward agenda rather than just refuting the claims of the medical establishments. But that didn't stop me from ending up losing my YouTube channel altogether. But Fakebook wasn't as big a deal for me. I think it was a bigger deal pre-2020 when I was posting more other kind of stuff. But yeah.
Well, and all of this kind of is it's what led me to want to get involved in local politics, because I view it, the bigger the institution, the more prone it is to this corruption and these string pullings and changing a perception by the government funded media and whatnot. I view the answer to that, right? Because we don't want to go down a dark path where we have, this total control top down upon us, right? I think everyone deep down just wants to be okay and live in a free country and be free to be amongst their family and relatively left alone, right? But everyone puts so much focus on federal, but I think that's where we actually have the least level of control, because even the federal government is so institutionalized. But I see a future where many people have had these individual experiences, right? Like me as an individual, I was touched participating in that whole journey of what had happened throughout the lockdowns and whatnot, to where I probably cannot make a big change on the federal level or the institutional level, or, maybe I could start a petition and send it to the government news agencies, but it's probably going to fall on deaf ears, right? But if we have tens of thousands of individuals like me, which I think there are across North America or across the world, who have had these experiences and then can come into power on a local level where you don't have much say in the big institutional grand scheme of things. But if there's tens of thousands of us having lived our own experiences, coming to power in our own small communities, if and when something like that ever happens again, we could say, not here. It's not right. It doesn't sit right with us. Even though you're this big, huge institution, you do not represent the desires of everyday normal people just trying to wake up, live an innocent life, work, raise a family, and live in peace. I really do think that's where the solution lies, because it feels relatively hopeless trying to, enact huge institutional change. But on the local level, and that whole, say, like peaceful non-compliance thing with the passports and the masking, that's a direct example of, no matter what is imposed on us top down, we all have a say, we all have a decision, push come to shove on the local level. That is where actually all the power lies. So I see the more and more local oriented we become, the more we can take back control from these institutions that may not always have our best interest in mind.
Right. And the local level is where the biggest threat is actually, right? Because if the wet dream, excuse my bad language, of the controllers would be, control like that, we don't even have countries, never mind having cities. Like there's literally just one overarching leadership for every human on Earth. Then then you don't have a local police person, you don't have a local anybody. You're like never dealing with anyone who actually knows your environment,
Mhm.
knows your climate, knows the culture. And so you're going to be having decisions made. Now we know it's like really going to be algorithmic, and it's going to be filtered through AI or pure AI, making choices that really aren't based in reality. And so, yeah, when you get down to the
Right.
local culture of everything, then that's where people stand the most to lose. So, to tell you the truth, I probably wouldn't even have offered if you were operating in any other political sphere than local.
Right.
But
And the beauty of local is even if everyone in a local area, like say they go full blackout, no one's able to post freely on anything. It's worst case scenario, crackdown. There's zero free speech online. Uh, when you're on the local level, well, you can meet and have a town hall and you can speak face to face. And just the ruling of a municipal level government when you have a few thousand people, whenever you're trying to enact policy on hundreds of thousands or millions of people, you view them all as a statistic. You could care less, one resident from another, because there's just too many of them. You literally could not know them in any capacity. You have to look at them like a spreadsheet. It's very human on the local level because you could actually get to know hundreds of people. You could actually get to know, like, say I were to become mayor, I could know hundreds of people, every single person who has the desire to be civically engaged. I could actually know their face and recognize their voice and make every decision with them in mind. And I have zero dependence on any institution to do that. I just have to talk to them. That's a level of like human connection and empathy that you can only have at the local level. And I think throughout all of human history, the majority of these, political decisions, even back when we're living in tribes, right, in small villages, was like around the fire. That's how you came to a decision, face to face. It's organic, around the fire. It's very new that we're making these decisions on the scale of millions of people. It's all very new. It's only been like that for, maybe 100 years or so, with the creation of the printing press and whatnot. But it really isn't natural from a human history standpoint. And I think we may be going through growing pains with all this new technology where we just go all in to utilize it to the max. But I think after seeing an episode like COVID, to where it can cause a lot of harm to consolidate the flow of information so much to these big companies and governments, that we could maybe have a return to that more local conversational level of governance, because something that works for my town here and the individuals who live here might not work for the town 300-400 kilometers over. And that's up to them to decide, as it is for us to decide. There's no way someone in the federal government could possibly adequately represent them as individuals.
Yeah, so it's there as a for show that we have our local politics. But as I know you're well aware, I'm sure you're aware anyway, that those games are rigged. And like getting into the political arena, knowing that, what is it like for you? Because a normal person would have an illusion that, oh, I can help the people. Some might go to the extreme, I can save this community, or I can, bring new things to this community, and this system is just and right, and an avenue for actual change in the world. So going into politics without necessarily having that illusion, how has that changed things for you?
Well, honestly, part of it is a natural curiosity of it's like, hey, I know all these institutions will try to sway opinion one way or another. If I were to go for, say, federal government or whatnot. But on the local level, I still do think primarily word of mouth is the main means of messaging. So if I can appeal to these people, I want to see, if I can pull it off and get involved in local politics, just how much
No,
change
I get it.
can I enact if I get in
Yeah,
firsthand?
I
I'm
get it,
honestly
Cody, but I'm
not
asking
sure
a
to
different
what
question
level
here.
it's, say,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
rigged. I'd like
No,
to have faith
I'm
that
just asking a different
someone
question
like
here.
me could get in.
Oh, sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just asking a different question here that,
Okay.
because when you go into politics not having the, um, I wanna say belief in it, right? So most politicians really believe in politics,
Yeah.
and they believe in, the structure that has been put out and the process and the system, and they believe it's fair and just and right, and, they go in with maybe rose-colored glasses and
Mhm.
with a lot of altruism, and I can make a difference and I can make change. So I already hear what you're saying about the difference at the local level. I get that.
Yep.
But without having that predisposition and the illusions of that, really what power is about in our world, whether it's local or any other level, then how is that different for you than that normal person who just drank all the Kool-Aid?
Uh, well, I guess it's the reason I want to try, right? Right. I am a realist. I have seen these things, maybe to a different degree, but I sympathize with everything you're saying here, and especially as you go more institutional, I view it much more that way. But the alternative to not trying, even if it's stacked against me, right? Even on the local level, if the institutions, have more control than they ought to, right? If it's, say, not a totally fair and open process as it should be in a free country, right? You still have to try, because what's the alternative? The alternative is an extremely dark path. And I have kids, and I want them to have a great future, a safe future, and a free future. So even if it were completely hopeless and entirely rigged against me, right? Which I'd like to have faith it's not. We'll see. But I feel the burden is to at least try, because the alternative is we keep going down this dark path where there's more and more consolidation of power, where we may not even be able to speak. Someone like me may not be able to have a platform in the very near future due to new laws, or just, a general continuation of this trend towards where just a few big companies and institutions control everything. I feel like while I still have the ability to be on a podcast like this, to put my name on the ballot and actually have it be on there where people can mark me here locally, I feel like while the stage is set for someone like me to come in and make a splash, I've got to try. Even if the belief is it's hopeless and it will never happen, I have to try, right? You give peace a chance, right?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, spoken like a true king hero. So young people today, right? They're not exactly in a great place. There is
Mhm.
a lot of what you've talked about, the hopelessness, the nihilism, the just apathy, not caring, and for good reason, right? There is
Yeah.
incredible pressure. I've said this more than a few times, but my son is a 19-year-old working 80-hour weeks, not even being
Mhm.
able to afford a place to live on
Yeah.
that immense amount of labor that he's making. Not to say there wouldn't be more strategic ways to do it, but just as a young guy starting out. So, do you feel like you are reaching the young people more so these days in your community?
Well, I'll have a direct measure of that, and that's going to be measured by youth voter turnout in October, because generally it's an older generation's game. Youth don't even feel the need. But our mayor in this election, it's the first time that he actually has any opposition. So it's not
Okay.
like youth even had a say in it in the last elections, And like your son, we're kind of just handed this society to where Now, working an equivalent job, you have to have 3-4 times the amount of money and put in 3-4 times the amount of hours to buy an equivalent home, as an example, because of these policies and these decisions that were made long before we were even born, and just one thing stacking on top of another. It's not fair for us. It's just any politician, they look at polls, they look at what's popular. Instead of a principles first approach, what they do is they just look at what's popular. And what's popular is to appeal to this voting bloc that is much older, that is a much, larger, more politically engaged block of people. So they have kind of had full control over the narrative. But at least locally here with me, it's the first time ever, literally, that these young people have someone coming and shedding a light on this. So we'll see how much they come out and vote. I hope it's a large amount of them, but we'll just have to see what the voter turnout is to get an accurate measure of that.
And do they show the demographics of who's voting and what age range they're in?
I'm not
How do you?
certain. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
see.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I somehow doubt that because it's pretty you get to be pretty anonymous in your vote for the sake of not being coerced.
Right. I like looking at previous statistics is just a general number. You see what percentage of those eligible to vote turned out. It doesn't really break it down by age. However, I believe if I get a large portion of the vote and the voter turnout is much larger in this election compared to previous elections, the natural conclusion will be a significant portion of those are young voters. Otherwise, what changed, right?
Nice. That's good.
Mhm.
And so have you developed enemies along the way? Every hero's journey is full of enemies. And I know you've been
That's for sure.
attacked on Facebook, but yeah, so what's
Uh-huh.
that been like for you?
Well, it's nothing that I'm not used to because I've always just been an authentic person. I've never walked on eggshells. So naturally, just my very existence seems to upset a particular type of person, but that's okay. I own it. I live authentically, and it'll resonate with certain people. It won't with others, and that's okay. It's just part of the process, as well as going into politics. I'm putting a target on my back. It's to be expected. But I take it as a big compliment because if they didn't view me as capable, if they didn't view me as relevant, they would just say nothing at all. So they're holding me to the highest standard of any candidate running in this local election because none of them get this level of aggression and consistent hate. But also, no other candidate gets this level of consistent support and encouragement. I believe this. You can spend your life trying to appease everybody, but in doing so, you'll likely be respected by none. So what my strategy is to just go all out in what I believe in, knowing it's not going to appeal to everybody, but for those that it does appeal to, it'll appeal to them very strongly and encourage them to come out and vote. We're a 5-way race right now. I could win theoretically with 30% the vote. So I just have to go all in for my people, and it'll give me the best shot I have of pulling this off. And even if I lose, I will be at total peace with it because at least I'll have had thousands of people hear these words and see this message, and I'll at the very least have changed the conversation.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Sandra says, well said. And hello, Ginger
Thanks.
Hemp Creek Bear. Nice to see you. And yeah, personally, I think, now this has always been one of my all-time highest values is authenticity. I'm the
Yes.
same like you. I've risked that most of my life. I've paid the price for it too, for the exact reasons that you've already said. It's some are going to like you. The more strongly you are yourself, the stronger the reaction. It's very polarizing, right? That people lean in hard, they lean away hard, maybe more in my case where I'm not, looking for votes or I'm not trying to gather any masses, which is different than what you're doing. But I think personally, authenticity is coming in style.
Yes.
That we've had enough fake and gay, right? That's right. Like, come on.
Amen.
It just from the get-go at every single turn and whatever message you're receiving through whatever media, it's a half truth at very best. And so, yeah, by setting the example, especially for younger people, to see you risking that and thriving in it, that to me is extremely hopeful. I think that's
And I'll
fantastic.
say this too, it's maybe the same 20 people just persistently over and over dogpiling online. Meanwhile, in life, the support is overwhelmingly positive. I'm constantly stopped in the street, my day to day, just with positive messages, well wishes. But like I said, everyone is a tipping point, right? In regards to say, that tipping point during the lockdowns was when they put in those passports and the curfews and things like that. Generally, these people who I would be aligned with, they just want to live their life. They couldn't be bothered. They're not the types of people to go online and constantly engage in negativity. They're busy with their kids, enjoying life as they should. And that's why they're happy to support in real life, but they don't want to jump into that negativity black hole of the online comment section. So this loud and vocal minority of people are not going to discourage me at all, because that's exactly what they are, a loud and vocal online minority. In real life, I've had so many emotional conversations, so many people just coming in saying that they're touched by it, they encourage it, and that's what keeps me going.
That's amazing. And do you think that that opposition online is engineered?
On the local level, no, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just people that they're keyboard warriors who maybe habitually are negative, and they just are
Yeah.
looking for something to be negative about.
Now, it may be indirectly engineered by local culture. What a lot of people will do is they'll literally tag the existing mayor. They'll literally tag him so they see them giving their support. So maybe they're trying to garner brownie points, or they have something to gain from the establishment remaining as it is, and they're
Yeah.
kind of just unapologetically putting it out there, to promote that and to benefit from that. So in a way, it may be indirectly engineered, but I don't believe it is. Like, I don't think there's literally an institution locally like having behind the scenes meetings saying, "Okay, we're going to coordinate an attack on this post on this day." I think perhaps things like that happen all the time by intelligence agencies and whatnot in the federal politics realm, but I think it's small enough. And that's why I'm a big believer in local politics. I think we're small enough here where there is still room for that organic conversation. So I'm happy to say that, actually, to have an optimistic outlook on that.
That's very good. Plus bots, right? These days, it's not just human opposition; it's bots that are literally
Yeah.
programmed and looking for certain kinds of content, and it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't local doesn't matter at that level, right? Like because it's all still in the cyber world.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very interesting. I notice, for example, my fake book, which I affectionately call it, pushes a lot of local content to me now. And I
Yeah.
also engaged with it. So I do want to hear about what's happening here in my Lord Selkirk school division or the Riverview, or that it's not only
Yeah.
interesting to me, I
It's
want to
actually an
connect.
incredible platform for local. It really is the number one local reach platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then what do you think this is? I'm not sure exactly what you'll do with this question, but what do you think that they have to lose? Now, I use they being could be the existing mayor and the community that supports them. Like I don't know how you feel about the existing mayor, if you're vehemently opposed to them or just simply know that you can do better. What do they have to lose by you getting into that position?
I have a lot of like people coming to me all the time with direct examples of things that I could maybe come out and say that would be like a stain on any given individual's involvement or role in our township and whatnot. But I'm making it a point to just focus on what my values are and what I would like to change, so as to keep it optimistic. And I don't want to, as much as I'll be accused of it, participate and say smearing any one given individual. The one thing that I am very vocal about, though, and I think it's the biggest pain point in this election, and I think it's going to bring the most people out to vote for me, seeing me as the most likely contender to take on the existing mayor, is the like cliquey nature of the local politics. So I will come out and just say this openly. The public cannot participate in our council meetings. Their voices are not appreciated. And the decisions are made long before the public's allowed to have any public input. They all vote unanimously yes on anything that passes. And sometimes that includes, say, zoning exceptions that benefit an existing member of council. What they do is they declare pecuniary interest. But what that is I can't be objective here. I have something to gain, so I will step outside for 5 minutes while I know full well all of you will just vote yes on my behalf. And that's the total checks and balances. There is a brief question period at the end of our council meetings after the vote has taken place. So too bad, so sad, right? If you want to say, hey, how could you objectively vote, to approve, say, a grant or a zoning exemption that benefits a sitting member of council or someone at arm's length, if the only way you can bring that up is in a private email where they choose whether or not to bring it up, or after the vote has already taken place, there's zero public involvement in the process. And that's a direct example just from a procedural level of how it's a very closed and cliquey political landscape. And I'm looking to just completely open that up.
That's awesome. Yeah. I want to ask you a question about corruption, but you probably don't have too much to compare to it. It would probably be a feeling answer that you would give. But, have you sensed corruption in your municipality over the years?
Of course. Yeah. But I've really been shown that so many people view me as an outlet for specific examples of where they feel wronged or they have concrete examples of, a little funny business going on. And a lot of the time it exists in a gray area, right? All human beings, yourself and me included, are prone to corruption. It's just a spectrum of how corrupt, right? So some of them, hold a lot of water. Some of them not so much. It's a personal grievance. I'm willing to hear all their stories though. But like I said, I don't want to go putting specific examples out, but it is alive and well here. Maybe to a greater extent than I had hoped before putting myself in this position where people view me as an outlet and share their stories. But I just focus on looking forward where it couldn't be me, right? It couldn't be me.
Right. And so what issues are you most passionate about moving forward? Because there's always a platform for every campaign.
Yeah, well, I actually have a website I'm creating, and I'm the only candidate in the race so far who actually has a written platform on a website. It's voteforcody.ca. So you could literally read my written platform.
Oh, you do have a website. Okay. So you could put that on your banner.
Yeah. I figured the Facebook page may be more relevant to like the more broader, but anyone who wants to see my specific policies, check it out, voteforcody.ca. I'm still releasing it. Like my full platform will be done by September, so people know what they're voting for. But at the municipal level, definitely the biggest thing is that like community involvement and transparency thing, right? Because if I'm to make decisions on your behalf, you need more say than just one vote every 4 years and hope somebody who's aligned with you runs, right? You should be involved in any major decision. So just I want to host town halls where there's open question period. People can ask anything they want because that's essential to accountability, to be able to ask your representatives questions directly with a public audience. So you have to come up with a proper answer for any concern. And other than that, it's more so just the answer to everything is like more freedom. Just show up, put in a lot of sweat equity, help people in the ways that we can within the limited authority of the municipality, right? We have a limited budget. But do what we can just by putting in the effort, making people feel heard, and being fiscally responsible. That's a big thing too. We've really been just blowing our budget. Our quality of services has gone down and down. Just day-to-day stuff, right? Because this is more so municipal. So people are complaining, like they got rid of our ability to dispose of e-waste. They closed our e-waste plant. Large item pickup, if you have to dispose of a couch or a fridge or whatnot, they just got rid of that. Meanwhile, we have huge property tax increases and we're taking on debt as a township. So we just have to, get that in check. And I think part of that is just showing up by putting in a lot of work, instead of just throwing money at every problem. Think outside the box, consult with the public, and just come in with a new perspective, because I think what we're seeing right now is complacency. We have an incumbent mayor who had no competition. He sits there, he goes out in public and takes the photo shoots and whatnot. But I don't think it's just the level of effort and enthusiasm and leadership that the role ought to embody. I think that counts for a lot.
Very good. Yeah. So most places in Canada, I know Winnipeg in particular, you can really see, say, if you dropped in, even 10 years have made a big difference here. And it's gone from being clearly a first world, not country, but just area in a first world country, to looking more like the third world country. Because I spent a lot of time in a third world country and know the difference very well. Is that the same there locally? Have you seen a similar degradation? Like you said, the taxes have gone up and the services have gone down.
I'm seeing the trend, but luckily it's still a pretty cozy place. It feels safe, it's a great place, but there are signs, like we have a beautiful park where they used to have crystal clear water, and, they had lifeguard on duty. People would go and swim, no safety concerns. There's islands dotted throughout the park. It's called Island Park. Super beautiful. Back in the day, I guess before my time, it was well maintained. They had like a beautiful water fountain on there. Now it's all like overgrown, kind of just not taken care of. There's like poop all over the beach, like the geese come and they just poop everywhere. So every now and then there's E. coli, warnings for the water. It's just, none of these are like, you can still live here and you can still thrive, but it's just small signs. But where those are like maybe 2 or 3 examples out of hundreds and hundreds that will just keep stacking as we just continue this slow trajectory. Same with the e-waste going away, the large item pickup going away. All the while taxes are higher than ever. We're just seeing stagnation at best, or maybe a slow downwards trajectory. And we always want to have hope of a brighter future, right? We have to have a concrete plan in place where it's going to get better. We have to have hope. Otherwise, you get that doomerism, that pessimism. It feels hopeless. You have to have that community spirit and a plan in place to say it will get better. We're on it, versus just seeing that slow decay. Yeah, someone just put in the chat here, I see shitification. But I will say this as one last point. The big cities are a preview of how bad it can get. So much crime, so much addiction, so many homeless people. It does not feel safe, certain areas in my neighboring cities, Montreal and Ottawa. I go there, I wouldn't feel safe having my kids, walking around certain neighborhoods. Not a place I'd want to start a family, and start a business. And I think everything in the city happens sooner. I think they're a preview of what will inevitably spread everywhere. And I want to make sure that stops today. If I get elected, none of that. Do what we have to do to make sure that the streets remain safe, that we get the addiction under control, on the local level, find help for these people before it becomes an overwhelming problem. And just, at least in our small little nook of the world, form a little protective bubble to stop that enshittification. Not here, not where my kids live.
Yeah, that's amazing. And here's a prickly one on the subject of mass immigration in Canada. And certainly the cities, like you go into public, sometimes you literally don't know what country you're in. It's kind of crazy. And I wasn't RACISD. I don't know if that's a buzzword on these platforms or not. I wasn't, and it definitely ramped it up because there's an encroachment. There is, they created competition for living, competition for space on the road, space. Your time is literally eaten up. Getting a job as a young white man, very hard.
Right.
I know my friend's son, he applied for more than 100 jobs and didn't get them.
Yeah, especially in the big cities, right? Because you have a limited number of jobs, a limited number of places to live, and then you import hundreds of thousands of people over and over again. Growth has to happen organically. Growth should be families growing, They have the job opportunities. The housing is affordable, so they just naturally feel comfortable to have kids, and it happens. What they're trying to do is just keep inflating property values, right, and corporate profits by just throwing more people, right? Like I said, viewing people as stats on a spreadsheet without any worry about the quality of life of any individual. They're just viewing it as, well, number go up if we just import more people. And you want to know what's funny? I can give you the perspective as someone who grew up Gen Z. A lot of my classmates and friends, they are people of other cultures and other races. And the funniest thing is I have a lot of Muslim friends, Asian friends. They're way more conservative than the majority of my, like, you know, white, liberal, left-leaning, you know, ethnic Canadian friends. The immigrants themselves, once established here, are more opposed to immigration than the native population.
It's totally
because they just want to live a good life, right? And it's just a sheer numbers thing. And also, it is a cultural thing. I'm not denying that element. When people come with organic growth, they become Canadians. They participate in our traditions. They become one of us, right? Like, I view my ethnic classmates and whatnot as one of us. But when you import 30,000 people into one city, all from the same culture, they're just going to have their own isolated bubble, and they're not going to integrate, and it's going to cause friction, and it's not good for anybody, these people included. So it's definitely not sustainable. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about that on a municipal level, because this is a very federal thing. But what I can say is, on a local level, I do want growth, but I don't want that to look like just importing thousands of people who know nothing about our customs, cultures, traditions. I want it to be people here being very supported and given opportunities to thrive and feel comfortable having families. Because a lot of young people, like, dating's messed up, the job market's messed up, the housing market's messed up. They just don't feel comfortable starting families like we used to. And that includes first, second generation immigrant families who are already established here. Now, I have to hope and pray that the federal government wakes up to this. But in the meantime, I'll do the best that I can locally if given the opportunity.
Right, right. Yeah, there's like, part of the agenda is forcing people into cities, out of the rural areas, small towns. And, you know, in the, again, hopes maybe it's going to be smart city where you got 15-minute ranges and you really can't, you know, move freely, never mind out of your city, even within your city.
Yep.
Do you see the pressure of that in your community, like making it bad for you there? Even right down to internet access and stuff like that, they can make very shoddy in rural areas. Do you feel that?
We're doing pretty good. Like, on the outskirts, our connectivity is not the best, but they're working on it right now, improving the infrastructure. And Starlink is a game changer for that. Luckily, with Starlink, it's much more practical to live in smaller towns. I think it'll actually be a bigger and bigger trend in the coming decade or two, to see people view these things we're talking about in the big cities and be like, I want out, and then come to a smaller town, because there is opportunity here now. It's not the middle of nowhere. You could host your podcast here. You could have Starlink anywhere. So there's less and less downsides and more and more incentives to kind of leave these big centers. But I think the reason they want everyone to consolidate in these big cities is because the people here are generally chill, right, for lack of a better word, and more so independent and freedom loving, because they're farmers, right? We can feed ourselves, right? We can just work with our local farmers to feed ourselves. We can fix our own things, right? We don't have huge skyscrapers where we need all this infrastructure to support. We can just get up on our roof and fix our neighbor's shingles need be. Like, if we were isolated from the rest of the planet, we would make do. But if you're in a big city, you lose that ability to say no when there's government overreach, because you're entirely dependent. If the infrastructure stops, people don't have anything to drink. They don't have anything to eat. If they don't have power, it's total and utter chaos. If you're here, you still have the ability to say no, because we're still self-sufficient to a degree. And that's why like these smaller communities are essential. It's the only living arrangement that's compatible with freedom and independence, because we can reserve our right to say no when they push too far.
Right, right. Yeah. Wow. That's an interesting thing. I sort of have a foot in both worlds, and internet is a problem actually, because I would spend a lot more time in the country if that weren't the case. So I'll look into Starlink.
Yeah, it's a little expensive, but the tech's coming. The tech's coming.
Yeah.
That problem's going away, luckily. Because that's why I remain optimistic, right? It seems bleak. There's so much doomerism. But look at the technology we have where we're speaking right now. People are watching. Like this, it's literally magic. We call it electricity, right? And we think because there's a scientific explanation that removes all wonder from it. But as a species, we've literally harnessed magic. No other animal on the planet could comprehend what we're doing right now with our computers and this podcast. There is a solution to any of these problems. If we just get our priorities right and we show up with the best of intentions, there truly is a solution to any of our problems. We just have to have love in our heart and not fall into that pessimism, and to stand ready whenever bad actors come in and try to seize control. If we can do that, there's an answer to everything. We can go to space. If we play our cards right as a species, we can conquer the solar system in 100 or 200 years. Literally. How can you not hold hope in your heart when that's a fact?
Yeah, well, the last point aside, I think I remember interviewing somebody, and I asked them, and it was in kind of bleak days of the lockdowns. And I asked them, are you optimistic? And they returned, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but they said, you must be optimistic. You are obligated to be optimistic. Don't even open your mouth if you're not optimistic, which, I mean, I don't know how much you've consumed of the alternative media, but it's a lot of like doomerism is the word you're using.
Yeah, of course.
Doom porn or anything like that.
Yep.
And I mean, it does really drain the life and inspiration out of you. You're not going to take action. You're going to debilitate yourself.
Rage against the dying of the light, man. The worse it gets, because that's the problem with doomerism, is they all have a valid point, right? It wouldn't be so popular if there wasn't truth to it. But the worse it gets, the more we're obligated to push against it. The closer we get to going down a dark path as a society, to worst case scenario dystopia, the more we have to wake up and push against that. I have one simple mentality for that: not while I'm alive. And I mean that for real. Luckily, it's not as bad, right? And people can call me alarmist or whatnot, but literally I am willing to die for what I believe in, if that's how bad it got. The reason I want to talk and have these conversations, because we are living in a free enough state right now where we can still hold these conversations. And I really do think we can come together with love in our hearts and solve these problems peacefully. But one way or another, I will never submit to that dying of the light, that going down, just going to sleep and having that total takeover dystopia, because all that is good and true depends on us raging against that with all of our being. And I literally would die if that's what it took. You can take away my job. You can take away my accounts. You can close my bank. You're going to have to lock me up or kill me to stop me. And I can't be the only one who feels that way. And I can tell you one thing for sure. There's millions of citizens. If only 10% of us hold this and is not willing to compromise this in our hearts, we're unconquerable. How many people are truly corrupt pulling strings, right? They have a lot of money and influence, right? There might be a few thousand of them, well-connected. They have, institutions, they have technologies, right, that we don't have. But push come to shove, if there's even 10% of the population who is truly willing to die for what is good and true, we're unconquerable. And I believe that is the case right now. We are currently unconquerable. What we have to do is keep taking care of ourselves, keep having these conversations, and just keep raging against the dying of the light. We will have a better future for our kids. It just depends on us. We have to stop waiting for someone to come and fix it all. It's not going to happen. It's the daily decisions each and every one of us make. We're tilting the world a little closer towards heaven or a little closer towards hell. but it comes with real sacrifice. Let them take your job. Let them close your account. Let them take your life if that's what it takes. But it will never get to that point where we have to, literally sacrifice our life if we're willing to make those smaller sacrifices now of maybe, not getting along with certain family members, not getting the approval of everyone in your community, right? You mentioned those people bashing me on Facebook. It comes at a cost. Some people can't take that, but I can take it, because when you're willing to give your life for what you believe in, what harm are a couple of Facebook comments? Like, do your worst, guys. You have no idea what I've been through on my journey and how wholeheartedly I believe what I believe in. It's going to take a lot more than that to stop me.
Indeed, it will. Yeah, there was a quote on in a book I'm reading by P.D. Ouspensky on Gurdjieff's work, if you're familiar with him at all. And this is from In Search of Miraculous. And it's not a verbatim one because I was listening to it. I just wrote it down quickly after I heard it. But it says, subject yourself to temporary suffering so you can be free from eternal suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can go in a lot of different directions with that, but that it reflects what you're saying, right? That if you can take a hit on a post, or you can just recognize, oh yeah, they're shadow banning me, but I'm not going to stop, right? I'm going to take to the streets. I'm going to do old school with posters and meeting people and doing events, getting people together. Then
right. Whatever it takes.
Yeah. And one more quick thing I was going to add is that it literally, it's a kind of a keto thing. I know you know this, but it's where the more they encroach on us, the more they slam us, the more they take hits at us, you can actually harness that energy. They're literally giving us energy. And that's why their game is short. And we don't know if short means our lifetime or even beyond our lifetimes. But what they put out, especially, it's like they played most every card in 2020. All the cards were on the table. Everything was exposed. Mask off. And, there's no turning back. They actually have tried to pandemic us several times since. But guess what? Public opinion is like,
they messed it up. They had their chance and they came close to pulling it off, but we rose to the occasion and they radicalized the generation.
Yeah, it's
literally Gen Z. They like to paint my generation as we're lazy. We waste all our money on Starbucks, right? Put all the blame on us. But really, we don't like drinking in the same way the past generations do. We love working out. Gym culture is huge. We want to take care of ourselves. We want to take care of each other. We want to be civically engaged, because we're starting to get a taste of the consequences of letting these things slide. We've kind of been on a pleasure binge as a society the past few decades. Sex, love, rock and roll, right? We have all this new technology, the end of the war, right? All that boom period. It's almost been a big party the last few generations, but party's over. It's time to pay the bill. And it's not fair that young people have to say work 80-hour weeks like your son to afford that house. But we're willing to do it if that's what it takes. And I'm willing to have a worse standard of living than the generations before me if that's what it takes for my kids to not have to carry the same burden. And I'll be damned if I continue to take the easy way out, to not make these personal sacrifices to maximize the pleasure in my life, to make it even worse for my kids and their kids to handle. It stops here. And I'm not the only one in my generation who feels this way.
Yeah. That's awesome. Really good. Just a few comments here from the chat. Sandra said her partner's been job hunting for 4 months with no results. That so sucks. Sorry to hear that.
It does suck. And can I just say this? They turned job applications, especially the big companies, into humiliation rituals. That's something that used to have back in the day where you could really come to a handshake deal. If you were polite, professional, and you had a good resume, you could walk in and land a job. You can't do that now. So many processes, and they might make you waste an hour of your life going through these digital interviews with AIs and whatnot, when you've already been sorted out by the robot at like stage 2 of the 8-step process. It's not right. And again, it leans into that when you have a large population, you view everyone as a stat. They're a part of a system. We need that face-to-face and to start treating human beings with dignity and respect again.
Yeah, exactly. Every process, like buying a home, suddenly you're in a big competition and they're warring you against each other, and it was just never
Mhm.
like that at
Yeah.
some point, right? It was just a yeah, much more simple and less complex, less gamey. The whole thing's become
Yeah.
all gamified, and yeah, I know someone dear soul who got a job and they made him work 7 shifts before starting to get paid.
Yeah, like what?
Was already well experienced, had had the skills
Mhm.
already, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, that's what you're saying about dignity. It's, they're really trying to make sure you don't have that stuff, and then, yeah, I agree, space is the worst investment possible. No offense or anything about that, Cody. Yeah, you wouldn't move based on internet connection. No, that's not a good enough reason. Exactly. I've been spending time in the country, and without internet, I obviously end up doing other things.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's a good experiment because I'm very wired in. I'm also a business and an online business, so almost everything takes place through the airwaves for me. And,
Yeah.
it is a completely different way of life. It's good to get a taste of it
Yeah. And
once
I'll
a week.
say this too, Starlink is a first mover's advantage, but we spent this whole podcast saying there's problems with monopolies, right? We do not want SpaceX to be the only rural internet choice, right? I'm sure we will have competition coming where there's different providers and whatnot. We're just migrating from the, wired connection for high-speed internet to we're
Mhm.
changing the infrastructure to like global satellite. And I'm sure SpaceX won't be the only company offering that as the technology develops. They're just like the first mover.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Sandra said in terms of incentivizing people to only, I know Tim Hortons got into a lot of trouble because they just would not hire a local Canadian person.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And
Yeah.
the irony of that being
I
like a super
know.
Canadian branded company, not owned
Exactly.
by Canadians anymore, and not even
Exactly.
hiring Canadians.
I know. I know. They wanted to have the
Ass
cake.
backwards.
Have,
Excuse my language.
yeah, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. What do you want to be famous for? Like, it's got to pick one.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, that's crazy. And so, I'm always a fan of an entrepreneur. I feel like while it's not an ultimate freedom, it really isn't. Talk to any self-employed person, you probably, in some ways, uh, a greater slave. Now, this is not a takedown. There's nothing derogatory in there. We all slave to something.
Mhm.
And but the entrepreneur's life, you've taken a big risk. What was it that inspired you to do that?
Well, like I said, I got laid off from my 2 jobs during the lockdowns,
Okay, so it
so
was
I
post.
had
Got
no
it.
choice but to try to make my own income. And I'd always built and sold computers, like, as a side hustle type of thing. But during COVID, the demand for computers skyrocketed
Yes.
because there was, like, supply shortages, and everyone was starting to do Zoom meetings and whatnot. All the while, people around here were receiving $2,000 stimulus checks from the federal government. So people were getting $2,000 checks, demand went sky high, and I had nothing to do except try to figure out a way to make my own income. So that was the catalyst to me going all in on running the business. And it's something I always wanted to do, but I needed that push to go all in, right? Because you have a house and a family, right? But for the first time in my life, it felt less risky because I realized, oh my God, my job can go away like this. I could do everything right. And through no fault of my own, it just goes away. So if the safe route isn't safe at all, I might as well just take the risky route. And worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, just get another job. Right? We're not that far gone. It's not like like North Korea where my kids will be sentenced to labor camps or whatever if I don't pay my debt. It's like worst case scenario, you take the plunge and start a business and it fails. You're going to get judged by people before they forget about it in a week. And then you just go back to work, back to square one. So if anyone watching is thinking about trying, do it. It's great.
Right. And maybe there'll come a point where you actually never again consider a job. I would never judge it or anyone that's working, but
Yeah.
I notice for myself, it doesn't matter where I land or what kind of difficulties I might have found myself in. I never am considering the job. And it's because of this basic reality that working for yourself is more secure because you make the decisions. You can turn and pivot as things shift and turn around you. Whereas
Yeah.
in a job, it's all being decided for you. And yeah, you can wake
The
up and
more
do all the tasks.
secure the employer, so like the bigger and more cushy the job that I'd have under any major employer, the more likely their HR would be to pull me into the office and fire me for talking to you today.
Exactly. You would not have the
That's not
freedom.
secure. That's
No,
slavery. Yeah.
that's right.
Better
Exactly.
to like what's the saying? Uh, better to die on my feet than live on my knees.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah,
I
you
mean
got it.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Was there anything in your lineage, in your upbringing, or in your ancestors that also prepared you for this or wired you for it?
Well, I had like a pretty rough upbringing and grew up super poor. I'd been through a lot of like hard times, and I think it just made me resilient to stress, and it also gave me a backdrop to, if I'm putting myself out there and I have to deal with negative Facebook comments, or I have to deal with whatever negativity comes with sticking your neck out, like starting a business or going into politics. I know how bad things can be just from the experiences I had growing up, and maybe a less than ideal situation to where, you know despite all that negativity, I have a roof over my head. I have my bills paid. My kids are safe, happy, thriving. I have nothing but gratitude because I know what it's like to go without. And as far as like in my lineage, I'm not too certain of my, lineage. Like there's no family book of, my great great grandpa or anything. I'm just born here. I was born into a single mom household. Um, but I feel like I have a guiding compass, and I attribute that to my ancestors. So I don't know exactly what they went through or, what led them in their journeys, but I really do, like, whenever something just doesn't sit right with me and I have to say something, that must be like my ancestors speaking to me, like that deja vu feeling. Like I feel like there's just the answers are built in. I have a very strong internal compass on, something doesn't sit right with me, or I really do believe something is true and good. That has to come from something. And it wasn't literally taught to me by a mentor or whatnot. I think that has to come from my ancestors. So I don't know exactly who they are or what they did, but I'm sure they were like me because it's built in.
There you go. Good answer. I like that a lot. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we start to close the interview?
I just wanted to say one thing, and I say this with like full love in my heart and good intentions for you. There are a lot of people who do put negativity my way, who will maybe criticize me for being on a podcast like this because of your stances on, say, like the jabs and whatnot. And all of my principles that I have, like I literally went to school in like the healthcare sector. I went for paramedic. Like I'm literally educated on this. Like I'm a moderate when it comes to like the whole like jab thing and whatnot. But where I'm radical is in my principles, right? So whatever anyone's view is on, like, say, the science or any rabbit holes you go down one side or the other, it really is just the guiding principle of freedom. And all answers to any political debate, I think, is always the more freedom, the better. And that's where it really didn't sit right with me during the whole lockdown thing, because I know people will criticize me for being open about that, participating in the freedom convoy and whatnot. And the underlying motivation, I want to make crystal clear for that, is just purely my love for freedom and the government not getting overly involved in our lives. I just wholeheartedly think that we're all just trying to make it in this world, regardless of what we believe. And there's just certain lines the government can't cross. And this consolidation of power is like the antithesis to all that is good and true. So that's my disclaimer on it. And with full respect to your views and everyone who watches this, for me, it's just the principle of freedom is something I hold dear.
Amen. Well, we share that in common to a great extent. And I don't know if you had a chance, I showed the comment here, and just that apparently your paternal grandmother always said what was on her mind and had a strong, stood strong for what she believed in.
Yeah, Dada had a good heart. Dada held our family together, you know. Well, my Aunt Sandra, she's on my dad's side. I'm not really close to my dad, never was. But we were pretty close as a family when my Dada was around. And I find I do look like my Dada. We got like the same eyes. And, you know, I've always been like a very, I guess like people's emotions have a big effect on me. Like I can't help but sympathize with people. And I must get that from my Dada. I get it from my mom, but I think I also get it from my Dada. She just had soulful eyes, and I miss her. I only knew her when I was a little kid, but I remember every moment with her was precious.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Sandra says you do.
Shout out to Dada.
Nice. Nice. That's beautiful. Well, I wish you the very best. And I do hope that everybody who hears this or is on right now can go and click this link to just like this page, which is the platform page that Cody is running on Facebook. And if he gets up to 100 likes, then he'll be able to live stream off of there. So that really does help, even though, your campaign is local there in Glengarry. And if there are any Glengarry watchers, then I do recommend voting for Cody. I think that would just be so fun to have some fresh and awake blood in that kind of an arena. And I just that's very hopeful. I was saying actually to Sandra last night when we were talking, and I can't wait to see you in 30 years, given that you've got this much strength at this age and this much guts to get out and speak and be yourself, speak your truth and be yourself. Then it's only uphill from here. So, or getting better from here, I think.
I hear you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mean to, I love the intent behind that, and who knows what the future holds, right? I've been known to be a little spontaneous, but I see myself maybe doing this for like one term, maybe two, but I don't want to be like a career politician or whatever. I kind of just want to set the example, you know, do my part, and then pass the torch to someone who, you know, is up and coming and I believe in. And I think change is good. I think a big part of our problem is like that crystallization of the institutions, people holding on to their power for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Like at a certain point, pass the torch. And I'm going to embody that. So I don't know for sure what my future holds, but I'm going to keep being radically me. But as far as being mayor, if I win, I'm probably just going to do one term.
Got it. Okay, well, good. I wish you all the best. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thanks to Sandra for the introductions today. And
thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll be back for Beth of Fresh Air on Friday. It's possible we're going to have a special kind of event with the ladies, and but I'll keep it to myself until I know for sure and let you guys know as well.
And Beth, keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity and for continuing to do what you do. We got to keep spreading the word and having all viewpoints accounted for.
Indeed. Amen for that. All right, my dear, have a great rest of your day. Keep me posted how things are going if you'd like.
Of course.
Okay. All right, everyone. Bye for now.